Welcome back to another episode of Unfiltered. It's a big day today. We're going to talk about a very heavy topic. After the last couple topics, this one's a definite change of pace. But we're going to talk about our personal relationships with our parents. It can definitely be a ticky and tacky subject. So what I want to do today is kind of talk about our parents, but then I kind of want to examine like the other side of it, right? So if we all say we have really good relationships with our parents, I want to try and discuss like what makes up a bad relationship with your parent and what can you do to like solve it. Is it really solvable? But I guess, do you guys want to kick it off by just talking about your parents and your personal experience?
Yeah, so like disclaimer, I'm second generation. And what that means is that, so my
That means
parents...
you were born here, my guy.
Huh?
That means you got some different experiences.
I had some different experiences because my mom moved here when she was like 6, but in reality, my dad was born here and my mom was practically raised here. And then like because of that, I was born here. So I have a different experience from some of these guys and girls because their parents may have like moved here from a different country. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I feel you. I feel you. So I'm first gen, right? So my parents moved here. And I want to say you guys are both first gen too.
Yeah.
But correct me. Okay, for sure.
Yeah.
So Jamal, you're actually the odd man out. But I think it's going to be a dope conversation to figure out like what kind of responsibilities and freedom did you have that like we didn't have, right? I don't know, does anyone want to start? Like I feel like I could definitely start, but I want to see
Where did you notice like, okay, so you have like you have elementary school, middle school, high school, college, right?
Yeah.
And I know you're just starting off college, but a lot of us are like over halfway through or graduated. Like when did you guys, so when was like the change? Like there's like a change, right? There's like that's your parent, I'm your child, I'm like obedient. And then there's like I'm your homie, I'm your friend.
Yeah, you're like your friend.
And so maybe some people didn't have that, but like I did. So I'm just curious.
Yeah. Dude.
I think I started to see it literally my senior year of high school. That's when I first started to like notice a shift between my parents and me. What about you guys? How is it different?
Okay, for me, I would say that I had a very much like best friend dynamic with my mom, and so it started like from middle school to like high school.
Really?
That's where I saw the difference. Yeah,
No way.
That's so nice.
I was the oldest. I'm like the oldest daughter, and in our culture, that's like really cherished, like to have your eldest daughter, and so that relationship was always like one of like the more secure points like between my relationships with my parents.
Dude. Yeah, I think being the like your order in terms of like your siblings really matters in your relationship. But I can't imagine in middle school or high school that you had like a great relationship with your dad. Or, like, did that exist?
Dude, I'm like trying to self-reflect, right? I think I want to say it's like my senior year of high school, but then I also want to say like sophomore year of college.
Yeah, I'm gonna say college.
I think
so?
And the thing is like it might be different for you guys, but my dad was like my closer one growing up. Like I became friends with him before I became friends with my mom in a sense, if that makes sense. I don't know. But me and my dad got really close. Probably we've always been close, but like my sophomore year of college is when we started like hanging out in a sense. Like we'd like go on like movie dates together and stuff, like just me and my dad as like fun and like I think that like that's cool. And then like more recently, I think my junior, senior year is when I got really close to my mom. And my mom's been like a homie to me. Now, whenever me and my mom go out, people think me and her are sisters, like sister or brother. Yeah, it's like, I don't know.
Bro, I feel like that's more of a compliment for your mom than the relationship.
Probably, mashallah, bro.
Mashallah, yeah. Dude, I feel like for me growing up, I feel like it was always my mom, right? I feel like for me, my dad, like the immigrant father, like all the stereotypes you could think of. But he was always like a role model, right? Like he's always setting the table for what I had to be. So I feel like when you're growing up, you definitely want to keep that boundary because I feel like you never want to be too friendly with your kids.
Yeah. So there's like, my dad's dad, my grandfather, right? He was super strict in the sense where like, he always forced that upon my dad, like getting like really good grades, doing all this. And my dad like raised us in the way that's like opposite of that because he didn't want us to go through that. It's a really interesting perspective. Yeah.
Most people like, this is what I've noticed actually, but like when their parents are like super strict, I feel like those kids, when they're also parents, they implement that same thing.
I mean, like there's still
that's
like a lot.
Yeah, but like I mean, to an extent, but like
yeah,
that's what
there's
I've
still
noticed.
a standard of like grades and all that stuff. But he was like a lot more like let off. Like I don't know if I should say this. I'm gonna say it, okay. Like my Jibu, like my third brother, he went to homecoming.
Really?
Bro, no one in the history of my family has gone to homecoming,
Wait,
bro.
Stop. You didn't go to prom?
Huh? I didn't go to prom. I didn't go to home. I didn't even dare to ask the question. To be honest, I'm just gonna be honest. Yeah. It's never been a thing. But like Jibu asked, and my dad said yeah, and my mom's like, what?
Really?
Yeah, but like I mean, I don't know. Like I think there's like a sense of adapting to like modern culture, and then there's like the boundary between like Islam, adapting to modern culture, and then like keeping your like parent-child strictness. I don't know. It's like a whole thing. But for you guys, probably different.
I feel like your relationship though does change, right? Like your oldest, I feel like you expect the most out of them, and then once it goes down, like the trickle-down effect, right? Is by the time you get to the last one, you're like you've been through everything, right? Like the first one's just the guinea pig. And like the worst part of the first one, you're just walking in blind. You're like, we're gonna figure it out, and a lot of what you're talking about is based off what you've seen.
Yeah.
But it's completely different once your kid goes through it, because then you can adapt, right? You can change what you're doing, you can change your parenting style to adjust the other ones. But like in terms of relationship growing up, I don't know. I feel like my parents were always very open because they understood like who I was as a person. But I feel like I made the relationship harder, in a lot of ways. Because
I noticed that. I feel like kids are scared to just like be
Yeah.
open with their parents.
Yeah.
And,
And
I get it. It's scary, but like I feel like just once you do it, like you're there. That's it.
I figured it out.
Right?
So that switch is, when was the time when you were embarrassed to have your parents come with you to school? And then when was the time when you didn't care? I think that's when it kicks
That's
in.
a big
Dude,
thing.
yeah, I remember. I'm always gonna remember this because it was like my senior year of high school. So Niles West does accolades, right? So I was at accolades, and my mom made sure to distinctly point out that I didn't take pictures with her. And I don't know if it was inherently because like, I was embarrassed of her. Like I wouldn't say it was I was embarrassed of her, but it maybe like I didn't think better, So now like in college, I'm like, yeah, like I was telling you guys a couple months ago about when we were doing graduation reflections, like my grad speech, like I made it to the second round, I didn't get picked, but my grad speech was completely centered around like my parents, like the sacrifices they made for me to get there, and I feel like that switch. I know we always clown Hannah, and we're always like, when you get older, it'll be different, but like I swear, when you're older, everything is different. It's not like we're like ancient, but like once you get a little older, things are different.
Like a drastic change.
There's so much that changes. Yeah, we talked about this during our grad video, but like, there's so much that changes
So
between
much that
freshman year and
changes.
senior year.
So, okay, how would you guys characterize your relationship with your parents when you were younger? Like, is there a story that sticks out for you? Is there like, are there words that you can describe? Like, I definitely, for both my parents, I had very different relationships, but I have stories that would symbolize both relationships very well.
I think for me, do you want to go?
No, go ahead.
Okay, for me, I think that the biggest difference in like my relationship with my parents is I've always grown up close to my mom. I've always grown up really open with my mom, and I've always loved that dynamic. But with my dad, I had a very different experience. Like obviously, like the stereotypes about the immigrant like father do hold, like very strict, very reserved, very quiet, And I felt like I couldn't talk to my dad, and not because like he didn't allow me to, but I just felt like I didn't have anything to tell him. Like I didn't have anything to say, And so it wasn't until I got older and I had like this sense of maturity in like the subject matters that I was talking about. Like I would talk about politics with him, and that's basically it. Politics in school, like that's what we talk about, But at least like even then, like that's what we get to have. Like that general culture and like those general culture conversations are like key in kind of developing that relationship. And I was not aware of it as much as I am now that I'm older.
Dude, that's so cool because it's kind of the same. Me and my dad love talking about politics with each other. And I think like we never really like clicked like that because his passions, like stuff he loves to talk about, like politics and all that stuff and like cars or whatever, you don't really learn about and like be able to experience until you're older. Like you can't be mature about politics and actually understand it until you're a little bit older. So then like now me and my dad bash Trump like every day. I mean like that's jokingly, right? But like I never used to do that when I was little. I used to be like, am I a Democrat or Republican? Like I didn't know, right? And my dad would be like, just shut up.
Why did he added the voice to it just to make sure we knew as a kid. I feel you guys. I feel like when you find common ground, like for me and my dad, it was definitely sports, right? My dad would play cricket back in Pakistan, so like wearing a Cubs jersey. So we'd watch the Cubs game and be like, these guys suck. If they tried playing cricket, have you guys ever heard that?
Yeah.
If they played, cricket, they would
can never
suck.
do that, yeah.
Yeah. But for me, I feel like I had two very distinct relationships, right? Like with my dad, like he was always working. So, but my mom would always be at home, so she'd always be the one like trying to press me to do things and get things done. But like, I think she knew like my limits, and my dad was always like, I want you to grow up, I want you to mature. So like one of the earliest memories I remember of my dad was like we were at Target, and as a kid I was like maybe like 8 or 9, so this is so embarrassing, but like we were at Target, we were walking around, and I really wanted something, like I don't have money, but I really wanted something. So I plopped down on the ground, I held his leg, like I bear hugged his leg, I'm like, I'm not leaving until I get this. And I feel like that idolized my relationship with my dad.
Did you get it?
Hell yeah, I got it.
What was it?
Dude, I was probably a kid, I couldn't even remember, it was probably like freaking Yu-Gi-Oh cards or something. It was something dumb, it had to be something dumb.
Yu-Gi-Oh cards ain't dumb.
Yeah, but you gotta grow up.
Going on, sorry.
But going on, yeah. And then with like my mom, like one of my earliest memories is like I woke up for school and I was like, Mom, I'm sick. She's like, No, you're not. I was like, Okay, I'm not. I went to school because I would always remember like my mom would look out for me, but she'd always push me. Versus like my dad would always be like, like if he wants, like I'm gonna make sure you get it, but I want you to understand the value of it, right? Especially being a guy, like I feel like your dad instills a lot of values in you. So I feel like one of the biggest ones is like, okay, you want something, like you can have it. I hope you realize how hard it is to get things.
Yeah, it's the opposite. Like my dad I would like, if I wanted something, he'd get it for me, but he'd be like, so it took this to get it, like the consequences, you know, Like,
Oh, there were
okay,
always
you got it, but
consequences.
now what?
Yep,
You know what I'm
there were
saying?
always
Like now, like,
consequences.
That makes sense.
like
yeah.
how's that gonna make your life better? What are you gonna do with it? Like, and then in the future when you like get older and you have like money and you could buy stuff, you're like, would I actually buy that for my kid?
No,
Like,
like, you
That makes
wouldn't.
sense.
yeah, yeah.
So for me, it was actually way different. So I was growing up, I was closest to my dad. Like my dad would just openly talk to me about anything. Like, you know, growing up as a kid, we just have like we'd always have conversations. But me and my mom, we used to fight a lot. I don't know if that's just a girl thing.
I think that there's definitely like a point in your life.
My mom and I used to just argue a lot. It's not that I wasn't close to her, but I'd always just be like, why do I keep fighting with you but not my dad? So like I'd be like, you know, I like my dad better. And I'd always be like that, okay? And I was like my dad's first daughter too, so I was really close to him. But I get that. Like with my mom, she pushed me a lot more. And my dad was kind of just like, oh no, like here you go, like a little bit, you know? But no, I see that for sure. Where
Yeah.
my mom was definitely more like very strict. Like she was very strict on me as to like, to make me understand like why I have to do all this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Did you guys ever play your parents against each other?
That,
Like,
well,
Amni
that's how
said
you
this,
know.
Abba. What do you have to say?
I feel like growing up,
I did that so much.
I'd be like, can I go out? And they'd be like, ask dad. And I'd be like, okay, let me go ask dad. And dad would be like, ask mom. I'd be like, mom, like.
My dad would
said
say no,
yes.
and I tell my mom I said that my dad said yes.
I would tell
Yeah.
My mom would always be like, go ask your dad. And then my dad, he would never say no, but he'd just like be annoying. And so I wouldn't want to ask him because he'd ask so many questions. So then I'd be like, yeah, he said yes, I can go. So then I would run out. And then
you
after
deal
I
with it
come back-
later that
after I
night.
come back, my mom was like, he did not say yes. And I was like, oh.
I thought he did.
I swear, I'm like, I thought he said yes, but I just left.
Yeah.
And now we don't get permission. Now we're just like, yo, Abba, I'm going out. Like, I'll be
Yeah,
here.
you just leave your house now at this
Yeah.
point.
Yeah. Okay, so I feel like that's like your middle school relationship. I don't think that characterizes high school, right?
Mm-hmm.
High school, I feel like was honestly maybe not freshman year, but I would say like junior, senior is when I started growing up and kind of realized. Definitely was not growing up, but I realized some more, right?
Me too.
Like for me, like something that I talk about in the essay a lot in my grad speech was like, when I was a kid, I was never able to contextualize the fact that like, you know, they came over from Pakistan, they came
Yeah.
here, and like the sacrifices that they made. And I feel like growing up, I always, I wouldn't say took advantage of that, but I took it for granted, you know? Like I never considered like, yo, y'all put everything on the line, you know? Like
Yeah.
you came to a brand new world, you decided to sacrifice everything you had back there so I could be better off, right? And I didn't get that till I was older. And I feel like that also was something that really caused this change. Jamal, I know you can't relate, but I'm sure like growing up you didn't realize the sacrifices your
No,
parents made
bro,
for you.
I'm not even gonna sugarcoat. I was spoiled as hell growing up, dude, and I still am to this day. Like literally, like I'm so bust.
Yeah,
But at the same
mashallah.
time,
That,
yeah, like
yeah.
because like thing is like that was never like instilled in me. Like, oh, look at my struggle getting to where I was. Like, in my parents because they grew up here. Like
Oh.
their parents were the ones that did the struggle for them.
But
You
you know,
know?
I feel like immigrant parents never say it.
They don't say, but I
But
feel
you
like
know
they
it,
see
but
it.
they never say
They don't
it.
talk about it. They
Yeah.
don't
Okay.
talk about it with you, you know? But I feel like, you know, you can just hear back, like, when they talk about their lives back there. You can just tell.
You can tell like those were like
Yeah.
the glory days, and you're like, damn, I kind of feel bad. Like I took you away from
Yeah,
that.
I know.
Um,
I definitely felt
Do you guys?
that.
One of the ones that like really like put everything into perspective for me, right, was is Hassan Minhaj. Have you guys ever seen his Netflix special Homecoming King?
Yeah.
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 He talks so much about his like immigrant father, right? Like growing up, it was just them two, right?
Mm-hmm.
And before I'm kidding you not. Like, I watched it this morning just to be like, I know this had a profound effect on me. Like, what was it? And I'm going through it. And I'm thinking about all the times he's talking about his dad, and he's talking about like, you know, like I wanted to do these things. I wanted to get acceptance from like Corey and Caleb, but I didn't care about what like my parents were thinking. I was just being a giant idiot about things. Like, how do you guys
Yeah.
feel about that statement?
I
think
think
for-
I think we all lived through that. What do
Yeah.
you guys, yeah.
I think validation is real, dude. Especially like for me, I went to Maine South, which is like a 99.9% white school.
Yeah.
So like cultures differed between my family and like everyone else there. So I was always looking for validation or trying to do the same thing that like Caleb would be doing. You know what I'm saying? But like that wouldn't be. Did you guys ever have that embarrassing moment where like, or not embarrassing, but like you wouldn't invite people over to your house because you don't want them to
Yes.
experience like your
I'll be
home
honest, my
culture
parents did not let me invite like non-Desi people over to my house.
because they didn't want to deal with it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I get why they were like that. I mean, now after a while they were definitely more open to it, but I totally understand why they were like that.
So for me, it was the opposite. It was like I couldn't go to other people's houses as much because it was like for them they were like, well, why would I send you somewhere where they have alcohol openly or like, and it was a lot of that. But everyone else could come to my house. It was like almost as
Same,
if it was
same.
like
Yeah.
on their grounds. It was fine.
Same. Definitely.
I don't know. I feel you on that, Jamal. Like I feel like it's because like I didn't want to open up my world to someone else, right? Like, and in every essence of it, I feel like it was embarrassing. And, you know, growing up, like you just didn't want to be that kid. And now looking back at it, I'm like, I don't, like, why was I embarrassed? You know, like, you'd be at Tim's
Yeah.
house, and Tim has whatever going on. Like, cultures are very different, but he's embracing yours, right? Like, you're embarrassed at yours.
Because then you understand it. You actually understand, like, what they're going through. And, you know, like, in their hearts internally.
The mindset.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
struggle so much, like, even to this day. And we don't know about it.
Yeah, but when you're young growing up, you're like, oh, why can't my parents have the same mindset as these
I
people?
know.
But then when you look back at it now, you're like,
But you
this is
understand
why.
it,
Like,
yeah.
it makes sense. You know what I'm
It's
saying? And
completely
because of that,
different
we're
for
probably
them.
going to have a different mindset,
Yeah, of
too. And our
course.
kids, like, we won't be able to relate in the same way.
Yeah.
Dude, yeah,
You know?
I feel like growing up, it was always like, you saw all your friends, right? You saw all your friends doing all these different things. You're like, damn, that's freedom. That's what I want.
I know.
And I feel like if you could, like,
Thank God,
drive
bro.
an
I
analogy,
regret I was like
if
that.
you could drive an
Thank
analogy,
God.
like,
Oh
if
my God.
freedom was a giant door, these, like, the two, like,
I don't want
bouncers
it.
next
I
to the
don't want
door.
it.
So it's like, as soon as you're trying to walk through it, you're like, your dad was like, no, or your mom was like, no. And it
then
wasn't because they didn't like you, it
Yeah,
was because
but
they
then,
knew
but then
better.
you get mad at them because they
Yeah.
stop you, but you understand why, you know?
Yeah.
But you also,
That was
I feel like,
also
I don't know
problem.
if I can speak for everyone else, but I can say that a lot of the things that my parents protected me from by being strict, like, I feel like I would do the same thing for my kids.
Yeah,
like,
Oh, a lot of them,
100%.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
But I feel like growing up, you're so irrational.
don't
And
understand
yeah,
that.
you're just caught up in your own feelings.
Because
But
you
that's
don't
what
think
growing up
as
comes into
far.
place.
Yup.
though.
You're like, yo, I see my friends doing this. Why can't I do that? Or like, oh, all my friends are going to a party tonight. Yeah, like, obviously, like, the party starts at 10. Why can't
Yeah.
I go to the party?
And then I think that's in college or like maybe late high school, college when you hit that step where you're like, okay, now I understand, and that like,
it's
that,
just
that
so
like furthers your
you
relationship with your
totally
parents.
get it. You're just like,
Yeah.
it's so irrelevant. You don't even
Because
want
you'll
to
see
go,
all
you
your
know?
friends getting in trouble, and it won't even be like trouble like, oh, their parents ground them. It'll be like legitimate, serious trouble, and you're like, crap, that could have been me.
Like life-harming situations.
Yeah,
and
it's
our
like, that
parents
could've been me
literally
if I
saved
didn't.
us from that our entire lives, but we don't get it until we're older ourselves.
Yeah. I also feel like one of the big turning points for me was when I was more able to be like, and I know not everyone can have this with their parents, right? Like, I definitely feel like this is one of the blessings that I have is that when I was able to be honest with them about things, right? Like, growing up, even if I was hanging out with a girl and it wasn't like in like a romantic way, it was just like,
Just a
yo, we're
friend,
legitimate
yeah.
friends. Like, I'd still be scared to say like, oh, I'm going out with so-and-so because I didn't want them to judge it. So every time, like, if I was going out with a girl, like, even if it was a brown girl, I feel like, you know, I would have to pick up on the corner. Or if it was another girl, like, she'd have to pick me up on the corner. She'd drop me off on the corner. And I would make sure, I'd be like, yo, like, I don't want my parents to see you. And it wasn't because, like, I feel like, you know, maybe to an extent they would have cared. But I feel like honesty would have gone a longer way. And now that I'm growing up and now that they know these things, they told me, they're like, yo, if you were honest, if you would just been straight up with us, it wouldn't have been that big of a deal. Like, we would have understood.
But that's the thing, we don't realize that. Like, we think that if we're going to be honest with our parents, they're going to, like, yell at us, they're going to take away our phones, do this and that. But it's not really like that. It's like when you start communicating with them and talking to them, they'll actually understand our side and we'll understand theirs. That's the key. Communication is key with our parents.
I mean, I would just from personal experience and like friends that I know, maybe sometimes it's like not the best to bring up that
Yeah,
I mean,
conversation.
not like,
It depends on mindset, right?
It depends on mindset, yeah.
and how open you are.
But
think-
I don't know. I just feel like once you're honest with your parents, it's just
Oh,
so
100%.
much easier. Life
Once you
is
get to
so
that
much
level,
easier.
yeah.
Especially
I
when
think,
you're older,
yeah.
because you know, like, okay,
Yeah.
like, why will my parents get mad about this? You know, like, you think about it. It shouldn't be something that I have to hide to them. So
Dude.
I feel like you just understand that.
And again, I feel like I was only hiding because, like, I'd be like, oh, you know, like, so-and-so told their mom that they were hanging out with so-and-so, and their mom didn't appreciate it. But I feel like then we're just stereotyping all our parents. We're like, yo, this is how one parent acted, so this is how my parents are going to act. But you never, like, take a step back and you're like, okay, well, you know, my parents have allowed me to do this and this and this, and they trust me to this level. Maybe they'll be okay with it, right? I feel like we're always so scared of taking that step and being honest with them and letting them into our lives. I feel like we put up a giant
And we
wall.
push them away.
I mean, it's also has to do with like, okay, so people that like aren't Desi Muslim for the most part, at least here, like a lot of topics are taboo for us, right? Whereas with like my friends who may have been like white or Asian, like those aren't taboo topics. Like they could discuss like
Yeah.
talking to a girl with their parents, right? But for us, it's like, oh my God, I got to think about like 8 different scenarios how this could go down.
Like,
What
how
are
am I
the, what are the
sitting down?
consequences for each one? What's gonna happen? Oh my God, right?
I know. It's
It's just once you,
definitely-
it's
harder
just getting
for
over
us.
that step, right?
It's harder
it takes
for
time.
us. Yeah, that's the thing. It takes time.
Yeah.
Like, you build it over time with your parents. And you know, like, it's new to them, too. That's why they're so worried.
Big facts.
But I feel like that conversation comes with trust. And if you have routinely proven that you can't be trusted,
Exactly.
then
It's
you're
different.
walking on eggshells, right? Because you're like, well, I made this mistake last week, and then 2 weeks ago I made this mistake, but let me ask about this party tonight. Like, they're not going to let
Yeah,
you.
like, you know how you said, you see your friend asking their parents and then they get mad. Like, you know, they don't appreciate it. They react in a bad way. I feel like that also happens with, like, kids who constantly hide things from their parents. And then one day they're just like, oh, yeah, let me just
And they
see
get
how
caught.
they react.
When you
Yeah.
get caught,
When they
that's
get
the
caught,
worst,
it's so
dude.
bad.
Yeah.
I'd rather be open from the front, bro,
Exactly.
than get
Then
caught,
why get
bro.
caught?
Yeah.
Don't put yourself in a situation
Yeah.
like that to begin with.
Yeah.
My least favorite is when you don't get caught, but one of their friends sees you, and then the friend calls your mom or your dad, and then I feel like it's worse because then
That's in
somebody else
general.
is
I've
judging
never
Yeah.
been in
you.
that situation.
Oh
Me and
my
Naz have talked about this
you've been in
before.
that situation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've been in that situation.
Me and Naz have talked about this before, but it's like the disappointment versus
my
like,
God,
like I'd much
yeah.
rather get a consequence for something than have my parents like
Yeah, my
disappointed at me.
parents would never take away my phone, take away like any privileges,
Yeah.
none of that. But they wouldn't talk to me or like they'd just be very
The cold
hostile.
shoulder,
Oh
yeah.
my God, it was the worst. Like growing up, that's what I had to deal with. I didn't deal with like getting grounded, getting my phone taken away, no car, none of that.
Bro, I'd rather have all that than the cold shoulder. Because you don't know how to fix
What?
it. Really, bro, take my phone. I feel like when my parents
Oh,
are...
Yeah, take
Yeah,
your
okay.
phone. Yeah, I
You're-
thought you
okay,
meant-
yeah. I thought you said the other way around.
Oh, no,
Yeah,
no,
no,
just screw
100%.
my
Yeah,
phone.
yeah,
It's so,
I don't
like-
care about my.
Like,
Yeah,
you,
right.
like, you see that disappointment in their eyes. They don't look at you the
Yeah,
same
they're not,
way.
they're
Yeah.
not,
It's
they're
just
not mad
so
at you. They're just
horrible.
like, we
It's like,
raised you better.
I expected
Yeah.
better, you know? Like,
Yeah, and then you're sitting there like...
That's
maybe I
exactly
should have
what
studied
it
a little bit more in that class, you know?
And see, that's how I was raised differently. Like, I was never raised in a way, like how I said, taking stuff away. That was never how I was raised. But it was literally just like, I'm disappointed in you.
Mhm.
And that's had such like a different effect on me than it has other people. I've noticed that.
Yeah.
I
Growing
had
up.
consequences.
You had
I had
consequences?
consequences for sure. And I honestly think that me and my brother don't have too much time between us age-wise, and my parents raised us in a way like very similarly, so that both of us were so scared of disappointing them that we didn't even have room to make mistakes. Like disappointment was such a big thing that they talked about all the time within every kind of matter, like any type of thing that you could have possibly done wrong. There was definitely them saying like how disappointed they would be. And I think that comes from our family being super open and having these conversations really candidly and regularly. And so I just feel like we didn't have room to make that many mistakes as we grew up, and so consequences were like what we got. And so I can't say that I felt like that extreme disappointment yet. And alhamdulillah, and I hope I don't have to feel that anytime soon. But I would definitely say that I don't know. I feel like it would be bad to not know where
Yeah.
you would stand with your parents for so long.
So where do you guys all stand with your parents right now? Like as of this day, like how's your relationship with your parents?
Alhamdulillah, I can say like it's amazing. I mean, I obviously can get better.
Yeah.
I feel like that's with any of us. Like anything can be better. So, but alhamdulillah, like I'm so happy.
What's
with
been
how
like
it
the
is.
most surprising part? Like that's maybe like some kind of obstacle you're able to get over with your parents.
So I think a few weeks ago, like last month or something, I had a party at my house. It was a surprise party for my friend, and I was so scared to tell them. Like they knew I had guy friends, and I was so scared to be like, hey, can I have guy friends over?
That's like, what do I do?
I was literally like,
I'm telling you,
I
that
didn't tell
jump.
them. Okay, I
Yeah.
didn't tell them. First of all, I didn't tell them. I was like, okay, they're gonna, because they've seen me like.
They're
you
just
know,
gonna
have
show
guy
up.
friends.
They have to deal with it
Oh, that's
after.
What are they
Yeah.
doing here?
But then my dad had like openly come up to me and was like, oh, like how many of your friends are coming? Like how many are guys? How many are girls? And I'm like, oh, so
Oh.
He's
we're
asking.
openly like we're fine with this. But
Yeah.
that was pretty recent. It was last month. Like they knew I had guy friends, but I've never.
That's dope though. That's like
Yeah,
a
like
whole
at my
hurdle.
house
Yeah.
especially, like that was like
Yeah, that's
like
a
just like a
jump.
friend thing, and they were so cool with that.
I feel
So I feel like I can just talk to my parents about anything, literally.
I can relate to that. I
Yeah.
think that my parents with my parents, okay, my relationship with my parents is really good. And that's not to say that we don't argue. That's not to say that we don't have like these little hiccups like in that. But I think that alhamdulillah, like we're at a point where I don't have like this inane desire to hide anything from them, and I don't have this like kind of like inconsistency with like sometimes we're good, sometimes we're not. Like I just could say that like on the terms of like having a well-rounded relationship, like we have that. And again, it comes so much from being able to talk to my parents about anything. Like I just don't feel like I have a subject where I can't talk to my parents about it now.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree. I think again, like I feel like it came with age, right? Like I feel like growing up, I never understood the struggles that my dad went through, right? And then once I started working, I was like, oh, like I see why you're never at home. Like it's
Like once
it's
you have
not-
that same experience,
yeah, once
get
you
it.
go through the same experiences, you can understand and appreciate them
Yeah.
more. When you can appreciate them more, I feel like you can then talk through more things, right? I feel like I've always had that great relationship with both my parents, but I feel like growing up and going through college, it got to the point where it's like, I can tell you things. Like I don't have to be worried about backlash. And I feel like the good thing for me was, even if it was a decision that I made that wasn't the best of decisions, like it wouldn't, like yeah, sometimes, obviously you get upset to cold shoulder, but most of the times I feel like it got to the point where it's like, all right, let's talk about it. Like I feel like one of the first times I made like a huge mistake, like my dad just walked around the block and he's like, we're just gonna walk and we're gonna talk about it. And then you like break down, you're like, look, like, because obviously they have like 20, maybe 30 years on you. Like they have
Yeah.
seen the world, and you have seen like Chicago.
And surprisingly, they've probably been through a lot of things that you've been through.
Yeah,
that, like,
and
you don't
you
want to
just
talk
don't
about
it.
but they've probably
realize
been
it,
through it
but
all
yeah.
already.
No,
You know what I'm
definitely
saying?
have. I feel like they go through the same thing that we go through.
100%. 100%.
And the fact that you said that like he went on a walk with you, just talk through it, that comes with age
Yeah.
too, for sure.
I've still never had one of those. That's
I'm-
some next level stuff. I've never had a walk with my dad.
Dude, yeah, I feel like definitely like growing up, like being the oldest, like there were so many expectations on me, like it was very strict, but it never got to a point where it was like I might bend, but like it wouldn't be to the point where they would break you, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like we should kind of address that, right? Like I feel like there are people that aren't as in like a great spot with their parents, whether it be because they inherently will not get to that place with their parents. And like I don't want to make it sound like, yo, you should be in a great spot with your parents. Like sometimes it's not possible. You know, you've been through a lot. But if it's just you're going through some petty stuff, you find a way to work it out.
Define petty.
You know, petty
There's like
isn't,
so much you just broke down there.
Yeah,
I'm trying to
yeah.
figure it
Okay,
out.
you know, like obviously, like, you know, last week we talked a lot about domestic abuse and violence.
Yeah.
If that's the stuff you're going through, like I wouldn't sit here and tell you like, yo,
Go
go
fix
mend,
it.
go
Yeah,
mend your
no.
relationship. That's not reality. you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
At
Yeah.
that point, you know, I hope you're doing well, and I hope you can find it within yourself to grow as a person.
Yeah.
But I understand that bridge has been burnt. But if it's petty to the sense like, oh, mom and dad didn't let me go to that party last week at
Yeah.
Jacob's, yo, like, please understand, like, you're growing up, but your parents do. They're literally grow up in front of your eyes, and I feel like we don't realize that a lot of times, right? Like, I don't know about you guys, but I've definitely thought about the fact that there's going to be a day and they aren't going to be here anymore.
I know. I've thought about that
I
so
think
much.
that's
Like
so
you look at
scary.
your parents and you see them getting old. It's just
Because you're so
scariest
busy
thing ever.
living, and you're like, oh, you know, I want to go here,
Look
here,
at my
tonight.
parents. You're like, just
yeah,
take a minute and like
take
just
your
look at that.
And you think you have so much time, and then boom.
You
But
don't.
you don't.
Yeah.
And I feel like I've seen so many friends who've lost like their parents at a young age, especially with like Corona going on.
And they all have the
right?
same advice.
So
Now, the
Take
same
advantage of your
advice,
time.
take advantage of your
All of them say
time.
the exact
And that's
same
all they
thing.
want. You know, they don't
Yeah.
want anything other than your time and your love.
Bro, they raised
Yeah.
you for 20 years for you to be running around town and not giving them the time of day.
I think we're all guilty of that, right?
We
Yeah,
are.
like,
We
and
all
but,
need
like,
to do
we
better
can
on
never
that.
make up for that, but we
Yeah.
can try as
You can
hard
be
as
better.
we can. We
You can
can
be better.
totally be
It's like
better.
you can always start from somewhere.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
never too late.
Yeah.
You just have to start somewhere.
The one part that I love was like you guys all talked about commonalities, right? I feel like if you can find something that your parents love that you love, bro, you can talk about that for days.
Yeah.
And that's something that you can start building that relationship over.
Yeah.
You know, if you know, random example, but if you and your parents love to play, like if your dad loves to play tennis and you love to play tennis, go play tennis
Bond
like in a
over that,
mind,
yeah.
right? Bond over
Yeah.
that. Find something though, because I feel like what we're really guilty of is not taking the time. We're so busy, like you said, seeking everybody
Yeah.
else's validation.
Yeah.
That's
That we don't take the
facts.
time
That's
at
so
home to
facts.
find that type of validation, right? And you're never going to be living for validation from your parents. They're always going to give it to you unconditionally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I think
we make it
yeah.
so hard.
I think it's always that that first uncomfortable conversation you have will lead to so many more that's going to go like so much more smoothly.
Yeah.
Like if you could bring up one taboo topic, something maybe that you're going through and that you think your parents can relate to and you bring it up, like it will make the rest, any other thing you want to talk about with your parents so much easier to talk
Yeah.
about. You know what I'm saying? It's just getting
Yeah.
that one, like you may think that they won't understand, but just bring it up and just see what they say. You know what I'm saying? Like if you're going through something at school, like being bullied or something like that, like something super like big or small, whatever it is, I think just having that conversation is like getting through that hurdle
Yeah.
is so important.
And unlike everyone else, like I feel like when you bring up a topic to a friend that might be uncomfortable, like you might have backlash, right? Like they
Yeah.
might
Yeah.
not talk to you, they might drop you. Your parents will never drop you.
They'll never.
That's what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
Like
They love you
this-
unconditionally,
That might
bro.
that might be one of the most risk-free situations. Obviously, there are some people that can't have every possible conversation with your parents,
Yeah.
right? Like I'm not telling you to go talk about the things that you can't talk about. There are unspoken topics that you can't talk about. But, tell them about your day. Tell them how you failed that test, because I promise, they're gonna be upset, for sure.
But at
But
the
you
end
could,
of- like,
at the end of the day, how
they'll
much is
be
that test going to
fine.
matter in the
Yeah.
next 10, 15, 20 years? It's just going to be a drop in the radar, and you can move on and build something out of it.
I think a part of that is specifically like when we're younger, we don't see our parents as like human beings. Like we don't
Well,
see
there's
them
mom
as
and dad.
right. They're just mom and dad. Like
Yeah.
they're just someone that stops you from like getting to where you want to be or doing what you want to do or hanging out with whatever friend. And like as you get older, you realize like they're like a fully functioning human being with feelings and thoughts and like they.
They're not robots.
Yeah. right,
and
I'm
you
telling you,
realize
like,
that
they're not
growing too.
robots.
They're growing with you. That's what we don't realize.
And they have opinions and they can be hurt by what you do or what you say. And
That's a big one, dude. Like, have you guys ever like offended your parents or said
Yeah.
something,
Yeah,
and then you're like,
it's
oh,
Horrible.
Like, I
probably
shouldn't
shouldn't have said that. Yeah,
And
right.
then you
Well,
don't think
what
about
I
it in the
used to do-
moment.
Yeah,
until-
exactly.
Yeah, you
That's
don't-
so big, dude.
Literally what I used to do is whenever something like that would happen, like I would say something that I regret instantly, I would just like hover around my parents. Like my mom or my dad, I just
Hi,
be
hi.
around them. Like,
Yeah.
constantly,
Are you
like,
still mad at me?
What you
Are
doing?
you,
How about now?
are you gonna talk to me?
Hey
Are we still
guys.
talking? Like how's it going?
And that's what it is, because you don't realize like how bad it is until the reaction comes out, because you don't like
you can
think
see
that
the
that's
hurt
something.
on their face.
Yeah, and it's like the worst feeling. I think
really
hurting
the
your
worst
parents is the
feeling.
worst feeling ever.
Most definitely, most definitely.
Yeah, man.
Dude.
I feel like you just never realize that you can have these topics, man.
Yeah.
Like, I know I'm going to bring up the comedy special again, but like, yeah, you guys have all seen it though, right?
Yeah.
The Homecoming King
Yeah.
special?
It's been a minute, but
I
yeah.
remember there was that point where he was talking to his dad, and he's like, his dad just had a heart attack. So he's sitting there, he's telling a story about, yeah, Dad took this white girl to prom, and it didn't work out. It's like, I wonder how scared you must have been in that moment. Even if it is 10, 15 years later, like,
Bro.
that's a big, like, saying
To
that
bring
is
up,
huge.
yeah.
Right? But once you had that convo, like, what surprised me most wasn't, he wasn't yelling at me. He was like, yo, why do you still hate her? Right? And it's like, though, he didn't give you groundbreaking advice. He would have been like,
I know.
I would have never
And he
thought
wasn't there
about
to
that.
smack you either, you know what I'm saying? Like, he was like,
Yeah.
yo, what you doing?
They'll give you legitimate advice, and I feel like that's the big part, you know? Like, you will always mess up. Like, you know, I think you and I can acknowledge mistakes will always be made.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
But if you can't learn from it inherently, you have mom and dad, or even if you're in a single parent household, like, you know, power to those two, power to single parent households. You got to go through a lot to get
Huge
to where
shout
you
out,
are
bro.
today.
Huge shout out.
Shout out to them.
So much strength.
But you have someone. You at least have one person, and I'm always gonna feel like that's the biggest blessing in my life.
And
right?
even this family members do, like cousins or like uncles and aunts. Like every person's unique in their own way, and they have their own different like
You
things
have
they
your
have
own
to talk
relationship
about.
with
And all
Sure,
that. You have
yeah.
your own relationship with every single one. Talk about different things with every single one, and they're all so resourceful, dude. It's like
That's true.
just having those conversations, taking advantage of it. Like that's my biggest
it can take
advice,
you so
dude.
far, literally.
Yeah,
Just
it takes
like
a while,
one-
but it's worth
yeah,
it.
it's definitely
so
worth it.
worth
It takes you so far.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, like they want to see you succeed. Like they want to see you happy.
Exactly.
Like
Yeah.
You know,
they're never gonna wish
family, they're
bad
gonna
on
be
you.
there for you.
Right.
always.
Yeah.
So it's like once you're able to trust them as somebody that's going to advise you, somebody that's going to be there for you, you'll find how much benefit that has in your life.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like I always kind of choke up talking about my parents, only because, like, I feel like I was so ignorant at everything they
Yeah,
did
for sure.
for me, you know? And now being in a position where I can see it always puts, it always clarifies that I grew up being a little spoiled, being a little full of myself, and not realizing where everything had come from.
But you have to go through that to understand it. You know,
Like,
you
yeah,
have to,
exactly.
like, it's a growth.
Yeah.
Okay, so wrapping it back. First off, I think we gave a lot of pointers on how things worked out for us.
Mm-hmm.
What is general advice you give? And let's try and do general advice for someone who wants to take their relationship to the next level, and general advice for someone that hasn't started it at all.
Yeah.
Right? Because I feel like everyone, it's kind of like religion in a sense. You're all at, like, your own different
Different
place.
levels, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's difficult, man. It's really difficult to have that first conversation. But what can you do that first conversation? What can you do to keep it going up?
I think even for the first conversation, like you don't have to center that about yourself. You don't have to have that uncomfortable conversation relating to yourself. And I think something really important with like changing your relationship with your parents is genuinely getting to know them, like getting to know them as people.
As people,
Their
yeah,
history,
not just your
dude. Ask them
parents.
about like, yo, what was like 15 years
Yeah,
ago? Like
it's
before,
so-
like how did you meet mom? How did you meet dad? Or
It does a
above
lot,
me? You know,
like, just
how did
talking
that
to
happen?
them.
I don't call them
Arranged
mom and dad.
marriage?
Just have
Okay, yeah, true. Okay, see, that's different too. Cause my parents were like a love story, but like a lot of like
Mine
first gen
too.
are like arranged marriages. Like talk about it, you know, like have a conversation. Like how was life
Just
back
start,
home?
like, any
Yeah.
conversation.
It doesn't even have
they're
to
so
be that
passionate,
deep.
You know, and
Yeah.
they see that you're trying to talk to them
Yeah.
and you want to know more.
Yeah, I feel like honestly with that first conversation, obviously maybe don't do something crazy. Don't pull a Hassan Minhaj and be like, yo, I was dating this white girl. Don't do that. But maybe drop like a pin like, oh, you know, like the Cubs won last night, Dad. Oh, did you see that? Oh, Derrick Rose dropped 50. You know, if it's sports, do sports.
Bro,
if
the
it's
Bulls dynasty runs, bro, with D Rose.
Bro,
Me
me
and
and
my
my dad
dad
be sitting
bonded so
there,
tight.
yes.
Literally in that room right there,
We
bro.
just sit
Oh
there and
my
watch.
god.
And if you can't have that convo, ask them about school. Ask them, Dad, like, how do I do this math problem? I promise they'll be looking to help you. They'll be wanting to help you, right? Now,
But,
if
like,
you're
even with your mom, like you could literally just be like, hey, I have this like issue with my friend. I used to do that a lot. Like I
Oh,
would
me
tell
too.
her, like,
Moms
my
are the
friend
best
did
for
this.
those, dude.
Yeah, you know, like it's so nice.
And your
like,
mom
it's
would know if you're
genuine
going through
advice.
something.
Exactly.
Your dad maybe won't be able to tell, but your mom would be like,
no,
ah, what's up?
I feel like they can always, both of them can
Both
always
my
tell when
parents
someone
can
isn't
always
good
maybe,
for
I don't know,
you.
yeah.
No,
Have
they,
you ever
yeah,
had
for
that?
Sure.
Like,
Oh,
I've
they
had,
have
like
that,
if I
they have
had,
that sixth sense,
Yeah.
like the second you
They
introduce
know.
a friend or something, and
Like,
they're like,
I don't like 'em.
like I got like a bad vibe from them,
And
you
at
know?
first you're just like, oh my god, like you're being dramatic. Stop saying
Yeah.
that.
And
But
then
then
you're
you're
like,
like,
the
them
friend screws you
right.
over and you're like,
And
damn,
like
how'd you
you're
know?
right.
Because they've seen it, like they've lived through it. Again, what we said about like they've seen the world, and we've seen like what, Chicago.
I've seen Chicago.
Yeah, like they've been in these situations that we're just entering right now. So it's like, why would we not turn to them? Because they know what it's like.
Yeah. I think if you want to improve your relationship, acknowledge what they've been through. Like, we're always so quick to acknowledge what we've been through. I went through this, and this, and in second grade, so-and-so stole my lunch money. But, like, acknowledge what they've been through.
Take some time to educate yourself.
Yeah,
on
they
their
had,
life.
for
for
some of
sure.
us,
Yeah.
they had to cross an entire ocean. So even for your parents, like, I'm sure they had
Perspective,
to go
bro,
through a ton,
100%,
bro. They had to
100%.
go through a ton, especially to put you in a position where you can sit on a mic and say, I was spoiled growing up. They had to go through a lot to do that.
Oh, 100%, dude. 1,000,000%. I was echoing that.
Yeah, so I think, at the end of the day, if you can't have a better relationship with your parents, it's literally impossible, then I think you're in a position where you can give yourself better advice than I can. But if you're just struggling to figure out what that first one is. And I
It
feel
is
like for a lot of
possible.
younger
It's
high
always
schoolers, that's where
possible.
you're at.
Yeah.
You're scared to tell your friends what to do. Like, you're scared of, like, what your friends have told you, and you're scared of all these stereotypes. Embrace that first step. Project where you want to be with them. Find a way to get there, because you probably will.
Make the intention, dude. At the end of the day, pray, make the intention that you want to better it, and then
Yeah, it's totally
put in the
possible.
effort. Allah will
You
take care of the
have to
rest,
put in
dude.
the
effort,
Swear to
yeah.
God.
I mean,
Yeah.
with
I think
that,
that's a good way to wrap up, right?
yeah. With that said, if you made it this far and you're watching on YouTube, subscribe and like the video. If you made it this far, you definitely are enjoying the content. But we will see you next week. Stay tuned. Check out IGTV and YouTube. We're no longer on Spotify and Apple, but with video up now, I think
This is so much
I think
better.
IGTV and YouTube is the way to go.
Yeah.
And look out for next week's topic. We're going to be talking about how we would raise our kids differently and what struggles we see in this new generation.
Kind of a continuation. It's going to be dope.
A little bit.
Yeah.
See you guys next time.
All right, slums.